It couldn't have been easy for someone as arrogant as Naomi to take the initiative to come here. Wasn't Stephen going too far by treating her like this? Just when Jasmine was about to try and smooth things over, Naomi lowered her head and apologized. Jasmine was stunned by Naomi's apology, but after giving it some thought, her behavior made sense. Lionel's endorsement without compensation instantly reversed the disadvantageous public opinion towards the Wyvern Group. If Lionel unconditionally placed his trust in their company, who else would have doubts? Even those fans without brains who had supported Naomi blindly were no longer as firm in their stance. In addition, the Wyvern Group had amassed 10 billion orders within minutes of Lionel's announcement. The company had once again become the leading enterprise in Santa Ana. "And what did you do wrong?" Stephen asked. "I shouldn't have canceled the endorsement contract with the Wyvern Group." Seeing the unsatisfactory look on Stephen's face, Naomi quickly added, "I shouldn't have threatened the company based on lies. If the Wyvern Group agrees to continue with the contract, I won't ask for compensation, and I'll endorse whichever products you want." No compensation? Endorsement of any product? Jasmine's face lit up. "I accept." However, Stephen shook his head. "No, Naomi, let me tell you one thing. From now on, you and the Wyvern Group will have nothing to do with each other." Naomi's disrespectful attitude made its reappearance. "Are you messing with me? I even apologized. What more do you want from me?" "Stephen, she already apologized and admitted her fault in front of everyone," Jasmine said. "The reason I told her to apologize is to make everyone here remember her. A morally corrupt person like her doesn't have the qualifications to collaborate with our company. And if she really wanted to sincerely apologize to us, why didn't she come yesterday? Instead, she chose to run over right after Dr. Sloan announced his endorsement of our product. It's clear that she's afraid of losing her fans, and she's scared of public opinion now that they're against her." Naomi glared at him. "What the hell are you on about? Miss Jasmine, your company is really weird. Do the security guards here have the authority to point fingers and make decisions about things like endorsements and contracts? If I didn't know any better, I would have thought he was the vice president instead of you." Jasmine realized that she'd been going along with Stephen's flow. It felt natural, as if she was letting her boss handle the situation. But Stephen wasn't her boss. If anything, she was his boss. Jasmine couldn't let him disgrace her any further. "I've made my decision. We'll be continuing our collaboration with Naomi. Why do you care about her personality anyway? Isn't it fine as long as she brings in money?" It seemed like Jasmine had been influenced by her days of working for one of the top enterprises in the world. To them, benefits were paramount. Personality and character were useless. Even so, the Wyvern Group didn't work like that. "No," Stephen said. Jasmine sighed. "Just because you somehow managed to convince Dr. Sloan for an endorsement deal doesn't mean you have the authority to make company decisions. Who do you think you are? The owner of the company?" "Yes, I am the owner." Stephen's confident tone made Jasmine question the validity of his answer. She thought back to when Stephen drove the company's car to pick up Lionel at the airport. After their drive back, Lionel immediately made an announcement regarding his endorsement, and the company's crisis was averted. Could Stephen be Mr. Lucero's boss, the owner of the Wyvern Group? Dennis walked over before the situation could escalate. "Miss Jasmine, my boss just informed me that people like Naomi, who have questionable morals, are not allowed to work with our company. We'll be unilaterally rescinding our contract with her." Naomi had no choice but to leave the company without achieving anything, because that was the decision made by the Wyvern Group's boss. She would receive a hefty sum because the company had canceled the contract, but it would be worth nothing compared to her bright future. She now had no ties with the Wyvern Group, and she would be banned from the live broadcast platform. Jasmine thought it was odd that the statement from Dennis's boss was consistent with Stephen's actions. "Mr. Lucero, did your boss invite Dr. Sloan to the city?" "Yes, he did. When Naomi told us that she wanted to cancel the endorsement contract, my boss had already contacted Dr. Sloan." "So he was always one step ahead of us? He must be powerful if Dr. Sloan came here because of him. I'm getting more curious as to what he looks like. If he's single, I'll chase after him. Just as Dennis was about to respond, Stephen cut in. You should give up. Mr. Lucero's boss is already married. If he was single, he would never fall for you. Jasmine put her hands on her hips. You're just a security guard. What would you know? Stop acting like you're someone important. Anyway, I've always been beautiful, and there are loads of men who are interested in me. I don't believe Mr. Lucero's boss is an exception. Dennis looked away and tried to hold back his laughter. He desperately wanted to tell Jasmine that his boss was right in front of her, but he had to keep his mouth shut because he was sworn to secrecy. After Kim found out that the Wyvern Group had officially canceled their contract with Naomi, she called Stephen and apologized. As for Natalie, she was overjoyed that Stephen had personally gone to the airport to pick up Lionel. This was a topic worth bragging about. She could tell her family that her son-in-law had met the famous doctor, Lionel Sloan, in person. One afternoon, the Haynes family was having a meeting at their house. They were not pleased with Natalie's news, especially Gianna and her family. Originally, they'd received a lot of attention because of their future son-in-law, Edward. Even Gordon and Mavis had thought highly of them. But with Natalie's news, Stephen had stolen the spotlight. What are you showing off for? Gianna mocked. He was just Dr. Sloane's escort. That's the same as being his driver. If it weren't for the Wyvern Group, how would he have had the chance to escort him? Gianna's husband supported her. Exactly. Edward's nothing like him. The commander-in-chief recognized his skill and made him his personal guard. His future achievements are limitless. There's no need for him to be like Stephen and ride on the coattails of other people. Gianna and her husband were singing the same tune, and the rest of the Haynes family joined in. Natalie, it's not a good habit to show off about nothing, Mavis scolded. Who hasn't seen Dr. Sloane before? You and your family bring us shame every single day. Some time had passed since Linda was kicked out of Haynes Industries, but Cohen's resentment toward Natalie and her family had only grown stronger. If Stephen is really that capable, then tell him to invite Dr. Sloane to our house. Kelly's husband backed him up. Yeah, that will prove how competent he is. Natalie, did you hear what Cohen said? Gordon asked. If he can't do it, then that will prove his lack of skills. Natalie didn't know what to say. Even the richest man in Santa Ana, Andy Harrell, had failed to invite Lionel to his home. How would Stephen be able to achieve that? While she was at a loss for words, Stephen joined the discussion. So essentially, you just want me to invite Dr. Sloane to your home. That's easy. I'll make it happen. He thought for a moment. Dr. Sloane arrived in Santa Ana a few days ago, and I've been planning on treating him to a meal. But since everyone here would like to meet him, then we can prepare a feast for him in your courtyard instead. Everyone from the Haynes family looked at each other. Are you joking with us? Gordon asked. No, I'm being serious, Stephen said. Oh yeah, you guys should make preparations soon. A few nice dishes and some good wine will be enough. Dr. Sloane might seem unapproachable because of his status, but he's actually friendly, generous, and easy to get along with. Mavis walked up to Stephen and placed the back of her hand on his forehead. She looked puzzled. You don't have a fever. If you're not sick, how can you spout all of this nonsense? In my opinion, Stephen's bragging has rubbed off on Natalie, Gianna said. The more time people spend with each other, the more alike they'll become. Think about it, Gianna's husband said. Who's Dr. Sloane? Will someone like him visit us? Kim had her doubts. Although Stephen's recent outrageous claims had turned out to be true, they had been accomplished largely because of a lucky opportunity. But inviting Lionel as a guest would be impossible. Stephen wasn't bothered by their criticisms. It seems like none of you believe me, but that doesn't matter. I've told you what to prepare. When the time comes and you have nothing ready, you'll only have yourselves to blame. After Stephen, Kim, and Natalie left, everyone from the Haynes family went about the rest of their day as they usually did. None of them took Stephen's words seriously. They were all looking forward to watching Stephen make a fool of himself tonight. After Stephen drove Kim back to Haynes Industries, he went back to the Wyvern Group. Due to the huge increase in orders, the Wyvern Group's stock of their new medical device had been depleted in just a few days. The customers didn't complain because of Lionel's status. They would rather wait a bit longer for their order than rush the company for the delivery. To meet the increase in demand, Stephen decided to purchase a factory on the outskirts of the city for mass production. This factory used to be a food processing plant. It had been shut down due to its poor management, and the owner had been worrying about selling it. Coincidentally, the Wyvern Group had a demand for it, so they came to an agreement and signed a contract. They were just waiting for one last meeting with the Wyvern Group to finalize the purchase. This matter had been arranged for tomorrow. Stephen's main purpose for coming to the Wyvern Group today was to ask Lionel to visit the Haynes family's house. Lionel had just finished his meeting with the Wyvern Group, and he easily agreed to Stephen's request. The two of them were similar in the sense that they valued a low-profile lifestyle. Instead of the company's, Stephen drove Lionel to the Haynes family's house in the Jeep he'd borrowed from Captain Floyd. Everyone in the Haynes family had arrived. They mocked Stephen while they were waiting for him. They were already anticipating his failure. Natalie and Kim were sitting on the side, holding their breaths. They were afraid for Stephen. If he showed up alone, the family's criticisms would be endless. Stephen's voice sounded from outside the house. "Grandma, Grandpa, I've invited Dr. Sloan over. Come out and welcome him." "Don't listen to him. He's probably alone," Cohen said. If Lionel were really here, Gordon and Mavis would rush out to greet him with no hesitation. But no one expected Lionel to really be in front of the house. And so, Gordon and Mavis didn't move. A moment later, the door to their courtyard was pushed open. An elderly man with an otherworldly presence stepped into the courtyard. Everyone in the Haynes family recognized the elderly man. It was none other than Lionel Sloan in the flesh. They were dumbfounded. No one had expected Lionel to visit their home. Stephen walked out from behind Lionel. "Why are all of you just sitting around? Are you really going to let our esteemed guest, Mr. Sloan, stand at the door?" His voice snapped Gordon and Mavis out of their shock. They hurried over and greeted Lionel. "Dr. Sloan, thank you for coming. I'm Gordon Haynes, and this is my wife, Mavis Haynes. We're honored to have you here. We've heard many things about you." It was rare for Gordon to be this enthusiastic. Mavis had to cut his long greeting short and remind him to invite Lionel into the courtyard. "Right, Dr. Sloan, please come in." "There's no need to be so polite," Lionel said with a smile. "Stephen, let's go in together." Gordon and Mavis were treating Lionel with such hospitality, but Stephen was the Grand Palace master. If they had to put a label on it, Stephen's qualifications put him on the same level. Lionel couldn't go inside while Stephen followed him from behind. They were equal, so they would go in together. Under everyone's astonished gazes, Stephen and Lionel walked into the Haynes family's courtyard, shoulder to shoulder. When Stephen walked past Kim, he subtly gestured for her to relax. Kim was relieved that the situation had been taken care of, but at the same time, she had more doubts. Stephen had many incredible connections, but had it been to the point where he could invite someone like Lionel? Stephen scanned the tables. They were empty. "Grandma, Grandpa, didn't I tell you to make preparations? From the looks of it, you guys didn't do anything." Gordon and Mavis fell silent. The rest of the Haynes family looked at each other. A prominent guest like Lionel was there, but they hadn't prepared anything to welcome him. Their family would be humiliated if word got out. None of them had expected Stephen to actually invite Lionel to their house. Noticing the awkward atmosphere, Kim spoke up. "I prepared a few dishes before coming over. Dr. Sloan, if you don't mind, you can try some." "How would that be appropriate?" Cohen retorted. "Dr. Sloan is visiting us in person. We have to treat him with the utmost respect. In my opinion, we have to go to the best restaurant in Santa Ana." "As far as I know, the best restaurant in the city requires making a reservation half a day in advance. Uncle Cohen, did you make a reservation?" Stephen asked. Cohen had nothing to say. Lionel had years of experience dealing with various kinds of situations, so he understood what was going on. "Everyone, there's no need to inconvenience yourselves. I came here with my friend Stephen for a casual meal. I would be embarrassed if things were too grand." Out of everyone here, only Kim was prepared. She was the only one who believed in Stephen. He turned to Natalie and mouthed the words, Mom, can you and Kim prepare a few more side dishes for Dr. Sloan? If Stephen were ordering Natalie around under normal circumstances, the situation would usually end up with a string of curses. But this time, it would be an honor to cook for Lionel, and it would be even better if he complimented their cooking. Natalie sighed, but a wide smile was on her face as she pulled Kim into the house. Fortunately, Stephen had prepared several bottles of the special wine from the military, so everyone was able to enjoy a few drinks together when the dishes were served. After having a light meal, besides Gordon and Mavis, Natalie, Kim, and Stephen were the only ones who spoke with Lionel the longest. Needless to say, the rest of the Haynes family was filled with envy. While Lionel was chatting with them, the rest of the family broke into groups and moved to the side to discuss amongst themselves. Do you really think Dr. Sloan paid us a visit because of Stephen? That's impossible, Cohen said. It's only been a few days since Dr. Sloan came to Santa Ana. I doubt he's familiar with that many people here. Also, the Wyvern Group asked Stephen to pick him up from the airport. I'm guessing he pretended to be someone important to invite Dr. Sloan here. Now that you mention it, I heard Kim's friend became the vice president of the Wyvern Group not long ago, Kelly's husband said. I think Stephen pretended to be the vice president to persuade Dr. Sloan to come. Gianna's husband nodded. I can't think of any other reason. Stephen's not that competent. How should we expose him? Cohen chuckled and snapped his fingers. That's easy. We can get Kim to call her friend and ask her to come over. Then we'll expose Stephen in front of Dr. Sloan. And when Kim's friend discovers that Stephen's impersonating her position, she'll definitely fire him. Kelly's husband, Gianna's husband, and Megan's husband agreed in unison. That's a great idea. Cohen approached Kim and struck up a conversation. Hey Kim, it's not every day we have someone like Dr. Sloan visiting our home. I heard your friend came over to the city from abroad recently. Why don't you call her and ask if she can come over? Yeah, having a meal with Dr. Sloan is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Kelly's husband added. Kim knew right away that they were up to something. She glanced at Stephen for his opinion. He smiled and nodded. Kim gave Jasmine a call and invited her to the Haynes family's house. After hearing that Lionel was there, Jasmine was thrilled and rushed over. When she arrived, Cohen, Kelly's husband, Gianna's husband, and Megan's husband eyed her in anticipation. The show was about to begin. Miss Jasmine, becoming the vice president of the Wyvern Group at your age is no easy feat. Cohen began with praises, then he changed the topic and shook his head. But it's such a pity that you couldn't meet with Dr. Sloan until now. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought that Stephen was the Wyvern Group's vice president. Jasmine felt a little ashamed because that wasn't the first time someone had told her that. Cohen saw that his provocation was working. Miss Jasmine, I'm only saying this for your own good. Logically speaking, you, as the vice president, should be the host of today's gathering, but you didn't know anything about this. There could only be one reason, right? Jasmine glanced at Stephen, and Cohen knew that she'd taken the bait. Jasmine never had a good impression of Stephen in the first place, so she would take this opportunity to teach him a lesson. Stephen, can you tell me what's going on? Without waiting for Stephen to reply, she continued. I'm not trying to criticize you, but don't you think you're too daring? Considering Dr. Sloan's position, the Wyvern Group holds his safety in high regard. Who gave you the authority to bring him here? If he got into an accident, would you be able to bear the consequences? The Haynes family gloated while Jasmine called Stephen out directly. Cohen intervened and assumed the role of a mediator. Miss Jasmine, even though Stephen is a part of our family, we've always been fair and impartial. No matter who it is, we won't tolerate injustice. And if I guess correctly, Stephen must have pretended to be the vice president in order to invite Dr. Sloan to our house. I can't think of any other reason. I believe he's deceived both you and Dr. Sloan. Lionel couldn't help but laugh. Was the dignified Grand Palace Master that incompetent in the eyes of the Haynes family? Yes, that must be it, Kelly's husband said. Miss Jasmine, since Stephen's conspiracy has been exposed, you can do whatever you want to him. Our family won't interfere, even if he's our relative. The more the Haynes family spoke, the more ashamed Jasmine became. She was the vice president, and a mere security guard had impersonated her identity. She would be a laughingstock if the public caught wind of this. Kim contemplated Cohen's reasoning. She'd been wondering how Stephen had been able to invite Lionel here. Cohen's logic was enough to convince Natalie. Whatever pride she had from preparing a meal for Lionel was washed away with shame. "For Kim's sake, I'll forgive you if you apologize to me and Dr. Sloan," Jasmine said. Stephen shrugged. "All I did was invite Dr. Sloan to the Haynes family's home for a casual meal. Why make it so complicated? Besides, I didn't do anything wrong. What am I supposed to apologize for?" Jasmine frowned. "You pretended to be the vice president to persuade Dr. Sloan. Do you really think someone like you could get him to come here? It's not like you're the owner of the company." "I am the owner." Jasmine gave him a disdainful look. This again. Kim turned to Stephen in surprise. Stephen cleared his throat. "What I mean is, the owner of the Wyvern Group wanted me to accompany Dr. Sloan here for a meal. If you don't believe me, you can call Mr. Lucero and ask him." It went without saying that Jasmine didn't believe him in the least. She took out her phone and called Dennis, but his reply wasn't at all what she had expected. Was Stephen some kind of follower of the Wyvern Group's owner? Why was it that every time he did something questionable, it would turn out to be according to the owner's instructions? "When I first arrived in Santa Ana, Stephen came to the airport to pick me up," Lionel explained. "In the car, he told me about the Haynes family. I was grateful that he took the time to come all the way to the airport, so I asked the Wyvern Group's owner if I could have a meal with them. I thought it was a personal matter, so I didn't inform you, Miss Jasmine. It was a misunderstanding. Please don't take it to heart." Since that was coming from Lionel himself, what more could Jasmine say? "Not at all, Dr. Sloan. I understand." Cohen, Kelly's husband, Gianna's husband, and Megan's husband were disappointed. This was the perfect opportunity to get rid of Stephen, but the issue at hand had been easily resolved. Kim and Natalie were relieved that it was just a minor misunderstanding. Jasmine joined their table, and they were quickly engaged in pleasant conversation regarding Lionel's future plans. "I'm planning on opening an outpatient clinic in the city to promote my techniques." Lionel and his people resided deep in the mountains, and in recent years, the medical techniques they practiced gradually declined in bustling cities. As someone who'd achieved great success with traditional medical techniques, his goal was to revive them in contemporary times. Lionel, the national treasure, had received permission to open an outpatient clinic in Santa Ana. It would be a great opportunity for the city to receive treatment from one of the country's top doctors. Everyone in the courtyard applauded Lionel and expressed their support for his plans. Since Jasmine was here, at some point during the conversation, the Haynes family brought up the owner of the Wyvern Group. This was a topic that Jasmine was very interested in. "Kim, have you heard about the Wyvern Group's owner? He's friends with an amazing person like Dr. Sloan, and he even foresaw the solution to our company's recent crisis with Naomi. I'd like to meet him one day." Kim could only listen as Jasmine continued to chatter. "I have a new goal in life now. I want to win his heart and marry him." After working at one of the top 500 enterprises for so long, Jasmine had grown accustomed to the bold and confident personalities of her previous colleagues. They'd rubbed off on her. Whether it was about love, family, or work, she never hid her true thoughts. Lionel almost choked on his glass of wine. He was aware that Stephen was the mastermind of the Wyvern Group. Lionel's gaze swept across the table, pretending to look at no one in particular, but he was really trying to assess Stephen's reaction. "Why are you being so sentimental?" Stephen asked with a frown. "Didn't I already tell you that the Wyvern Group's owner is married? Just give up." "You say he's married, but so what? He can always get a divorce. For a beautiful woman like me, no matter how outstanding his wife is, I'm definitely the best partner for him." Stephen had no words. Jasmine was ridiculous. Kim glared at her. "Watch what you say, Jasmine. That's inappropriate for the dinner table. Besides, why are you looking forward to a divorce? That's not a happy occasion." "But I'll only have a chance if he gets a divorce." Jasmine thought of something and leaned across the table. Hey, Steven, I feel like every time you take action, it's because you received special instructions from the owner. That means you've met him before in person, right? Tell me, what does he look like? Steven patted his chest. He looks just like me. Handsome and elegant. Jasmine clicked her tongue. Whatever. Kim glanced at Steven. She had a feeling that he was close to the Wyvern Group's owner. Although their meal tonight had been simple and crude, Lionel's presence made the dinner worth millions, if not billions. After all, how many people in this world were able to invite Lionel for a casual dinner with a few simple dishes and bottles of wine? The conversation at the table was interrupted when Jasmine's phone rang. Dennis was calling. What? Do you want Steven to come with me? He's just a security guard. He can't be considered an executive of the company. Mr. Lucero, don't you think it's inappropriate to have him tag along? It was my boss's idea. Hearing that it was the Wyvern Group's owner's arrangement, Jasmine's attitude shifted 180 degrees. I see. Why didn't you say so earlier? I think it's a great idea. He knows that I'm only one person, so I could be at a disadvantage during negotiations. That's why he wants me to have a bodyguard. He's so considerate. Mr. Lucero, can you please tell me if your boss has feelings for me? Why else would he be so worried about my safety? Steven was both shocked and amazed by how Jasmine's brain worked. On the other side of the line, Dennis felt a headache coming on. How was he supposed to answer her question? I guess so. Jasmine was filled with excitement. Kim, did you hear that? The owner of my company cares about me. It won't be long before we start dating. Lionel couldn't hold in his laughter, but thankfully, he'd finished his glass of wine. Kim and Jasmine weren't aware, but they'd narrowly avoided being splashed in the face with wine. At this time, two people were leisurely fishing by the riverbank. Well done, Austin. You managed to promote your grazing corporation's medical device to all the hospitals in the city. You earned a lot of money from this. That's all in the past, Austin said. You should already know that the Wyvern Group's new product has taken over the markets. It was only because Naomi threatened to cancel her contract with them that I was able to take advantage of the situation. I didn't expect them to have connections with someone like Lionel Sloan. With his endorsement, our company's product is no longer needed or wanted. All of the hospitals are introducing the Wyvern Group's model. Austin Adams was one of the 13 adopted sons of the current head of the Adams family. He was also known as the 13th Guard. The family had made arrangements for Austin to stay in Santa Ana and manage the grazing corporation. When Melinda came to the city, she hadn't utilized the grazing corporation's resources and had relied on her own methods. Austin was fishing with an elderly man named Marvin. He had deep ties with the Adams family. Marvin reeled in the fish he'd caught. I heard that orders from Wyvern Group's new product have reached tens of billions, and they're planning on expanding their production by purchasing a factory. They're in the process of sealing the deal. You've already come up with a countermeasure, haven't you? Yes, I knew about this already. The owner of the factory has business dealings with me, and we could be considered good friends. If Steven wants to purchase the factory, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Marvin patted Austin's shoulder. Good, do your best. Right now, the position of the Adam family's successor is up in the air. I have high hopes for you. The next day, Steven drove Jasmine to the factory located on the outskirts of Santa Ana. Besides finalizing the details of the contract, they were also here to inspect the factory. The owner of the factory was a man named Scott. When they arrived, he placed the contract on the table between them. Miss Jasmine, once you sign this contract, the factory will be yours. The Wyvern Group and Scott had met several times before to come to an agreement. The contract had been drafted beforehand, so Jasmine briefly looked it over before picking up a pen and preparing to sign her name. Steven was standing behind her when he saw a trace of triumph in Scott's expression. It was very well hidden, but it couldn't escape his notice. Steven walked around the couch and grabbed Jasmine's arm. Please check the contract again. Scott shot Stephen a glare. Who are you supposed to be? I doubt you have the authority to tell your vice president what to do. Miss Jasmine, we've already discussed the terms of this contract. Are you doubting me? What happened to the trust between us? Jasmine had met with Scott a few times before, and they'd agreed to the terms written on the contract. He seemed reliable. Miss Jasmine, it's better to be careful, Stephen said. With one stroke of your pen, the Wyvern Group could lose $10 million or more. It hasn't been that long since the issue with Naomi was resolved. If you were cheated out of $10 million now, what would the owner of the company say? What nonsense are you talking about? Can't you just hope for me to do well? Stephen threw up his hands. I'm just looking out for you. That's why I'm reminding you to be careful. Without waiting for a reply, Stephen picked up the contract and carefully read through each page. There were no problems with the initial paragraphs, but when it came to the transaction amount, Scott had clearly made some changes. Stephen pointed at the extra zero on the contract. 100 million? I remember that the price we agreed on was 10 million. How did it suddenly become 100 million? Jasmine grabbed the contract. Sure enough, the number on the page had been changed. The original 10 million had increased to 100 million. Scott had weaved in an extra zero at some point and managed to make the number ambiguous. Moreover, if one didn't look carefully, it would have been impossible to catch. If it weren't for Stephen, she would have signed the contract without knowing. And when Scott asked her for 100 million, she would have been in deep trouble. Scott seemed to be an honest person, but it turned out that he was a cunning businessman who resorted to trickery. Mr. Scott, please explain yourself. What's there to explain? When we discussed the contract previously, we did agree on a price of 10 million. But the situation is different now. Do you know how many buyers have come to find me in the past few days? Some are offering me 30 million, 50 million, and even 150 million. Selling this factory for 100 million is considered cheap. We already agreed on 10 million, and I even paid the down payment, Jasmine countered. It looks to me like the untrustworthy one is yourself. Yes, I'm raising the price, but what can you do? Scott said shamelessly. Stephen spoke up in Jasmine's stead. Since you think that your factory is worth more than 10 million, then please return the 3 million deposit to us. We will not be purchasing your factory. Surely you're not suggesting breaking the contract, right? If you are, that would mean you're refusing my generous offer. Do you really think I'm going to give you back your deposit? Jasmine had never gone up against someone like Scott before. She didn't know what to do. If she lost the 3 million deposit, what would Dennis or the owner say? If that's the case, then there's an easy solution. Stephen took a seat next to Jasmine. Give us back the 3 million or adjust the contract according to the market price. Are you threatening me? Scott snapped his fingers. A group of people wielding wooden sticks rushed in from outside the factory. Jasmine leaned over to Stephen and whispered, Aren't you a security guard? Do something. Stephen shrugged. I'm not even an executive. What am I supposed to do? Jasmine gave him an incredulous look. Stephen was unreliable, so she had to find some way out of this herself. Mr. Scott, this is a society built on laws, and resorting to violence goes against the law. Cut the nonsense. Scott gestured to the group behind him. If you don't leave, you'll have to deal with them. It looks like patience isn't one of your virtues, Stephen said. He rolled his shoulder before strolling up to Scott's subordinates. In the blink of an eye, the whole group was on the ground, clutching their stomachs in pain. Jasmine looked on in shock. Had Stephen always been that strong? Scott was even more astonished. He'd never imagined that the people who Austin had sent would be so weak. Stephen walked back to the couch. He grabbed Scott's collar and hauled him up. You've seen what I can do. It doesn't matter how many people come. What do you want? Scott stuttered. Who told you to do this? It was Austin Adams. Jasmine looked at Stephen in surprise. So there was someone behind Scott. From recent events, it seemed like Stephen could predict the future whenever an incident involved the Wyvern Group. She recalled that Stephen had constantly stated that he was the owner. Could that be true? No, that was impossible. If Stephen really was the owner, he wouldn't have freeloaded off of Kim and her family for the past 3 years. It had to have been a coincidence. The Wyvern Group's owner gave Stephen personal instructions in advance, and today was no different. Yes, that had to be it. Stephen hadn't expected the name Austin Adams to come from Scott's mouth. He and Austin had been on friendly terms in the past. Back then, when the Adams family tried to track him down and kill him, Austin chose to be neutral. This was also the main reason why Austin was unable to improve his standing in Santa Ana. Who would have thought that Austin would make his move 6 years later? Stephen found this hard to believe. Austin hadn't assisted Melinda when she came to Santa Ana to get rid of him. "You'll regret it if you're lying to me." Scott waved his arms in surrender. "Why would I lie to you when I'm already in this state?" He explained in full detail the instructions from Austin. "It really was him," Stephen said coldly. "I told you everything. Can you let me go now?" Even though Scott was shrewd and almost cost the Wyvern Group a $90 million loss, he didn't deserve to die. Stephen let go of his collar. Scott was relieved that his feet were finally touching the floor again. "I'll return the $3 million deposit." Just as Scott was preparing to transfer the money, Stephen stopped him. "Wait, when did I say I would terminate the contract?" "What?" Scott glanced at Jasmine. "But what about—" Stephen could guess what Scott was thinking. Even though he was good at fighting, he wasn't an executive of the company. A mere security guard didn't have the authority to make decisions. "What I mean is, the area around here is quiet and spacious. This is exactly the place our company has been looking for to increase production. Isn't that right, Miss Jasmine?" "Yes," Jasmine agreed. "But although the Wyvern Group can afford $100 million, it's not worth the purchase, because this is a losing deal." "It's not up to us to decide whether it's a profitable deal or a losing one." Stephen waved at Scott. "Bring me another copy of this contract." Scott picked it up from the table and handed it over. Stephen flipped through the contract, picking up the pen, and wrote a string of numbers. "We'll be signing the contract according to this price." Scott glanced at the page and frowned. $5 million? But didn't we agree on $10 million? Stephen gave him a meaningful look. "Was it $10 million? You must have remembered incorrectly. When did Miss Jasmine suggest $10 million? When Scott didn't get the hint and was about to continue arguing, Stephen narrowed his eyes. Scott shrunk back and swallowed his words. "Even if Miss Jasmine told you that she would pay $10 million, she's changed her mind. It'll be $5 million. If you don't agree, then we'll be leaving." Stephen shot Jasmine a look. She nodded. "Yes, my final offer is $5 million. If we can't come to an agreement, then I'm afraid that I'll have to purchase a different factory. There are at least 5 other owners who have contacted me on their own accord to sell their factories. Their prices are below $5 million. When Scott didn't say anything, Jasmine stood up and pretended like she was about to leave. "I'll take your silence as a no. In that case, I'll be heading back. Have a nice day." "Hold on." Scott clenched his teeth. "Fine. $5 million it is." Stephen didn't screw him over that badly. $5 million was a reasonable price. According to estimates based on the market value, Scott's factory was worth around $3 to $7 million. If the remote location was taken into consideration, the average price would be around $4 million. Scott had already profited. This time, the details of the contract and signing their names went much more smoothly. Jasmine had already given Scott $3 million as a down payment. After giving him the remaining $2 million, his factory officially belonged to the Wyvern Group. From this incident, Jasmine's impression of Stephen changed quite a bit. Kim's husband wasn't completely useless. When Austin found out that Scott and the Wyvern Group had completed the purchase, he immediately gave Scott a call and demanded an explanation from him. Scott was just as furious. If he hadn't listened to Austin, he could have sold the factory for $10 million instead of $5 million. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got.
This is my factory. If I want to sell it, then I'm selling it. What does this have to do with you? Who do you think you are, Austin? Don't think you're all that just because you're a member of the Addams family. 13th guard? Yeah, right. You're just a dog your family raised.
Austin flew into a rage and tossed his phone across the room. He wanted to tear Scott to pieces. A man sitting next to Austin waved a folding fan. I'm guessing Scott surrendered to the Wyvern Group. He was probably threatened. Your plan to prevent them from purchasing the factory may have failed, but we still have a chance to mess things up for Stephen. Austin's interest was piqued. Do you have an idea, Mr. Quinn? The Wyvern Group's new medical device has replaced your company's product on the market, but that doesn't mean things will stay that way. Mr. Quinn whispered his plan in Austin's ear. Austin applauded him. You're a genius. If this goes well, the Wyvern Group's reputation will be ruined. After work, Stephen was surprised when Jasmine offered to treat him to a meal. Of course, Kim would be there too. Jasmine's opinion of Stephen had completely changed. It seemed like there was a reason why Kim wanted to keep him around. At the restaurant, Jasmine told Kim everything that happened at the factory. Stephen, how on earth did you guess that there was someone behind Scott? Jasmine asked. Stephen rolled his eyes. Anyone with a bit of intelligence could have guessed it all, okay? Jasmine felt like he was insulting her. Just tell me the truth. Okay, fine. To be honest, it was the owner's idea. Stephen was the Wyvern Group's owner, so technically this wasn't a lie. Jasmine's eyes sparkled. I knew it. I've never seen him before, but he's always planning ahead and saving me from sticky situations. I feel like he's always next to me. Stephen nearly choked on his glass of water. I'm talking about the Wyvern Group's owner. Why are you so worked up? If someone else were here, they might think you're the owner. I am the owner. Just drink your water. Kim propped her chin up with her hand. I've been wondering, too, who exactly is this owner? It's rare for you to be so infatuated with a man. When we were in school, how many rich and handsome men lined up to pursue you? You didn't even look in their direction. Stephen scoffed. Doubt she was that popular. You two were friends, so you hung out together. They were probably lining up to chase after you, Kim. Shut it, Stephen, Jasmine snapped. I feel like the owner's quite bold, Kim said. The Wyvern Group has only just established the reputation, but he already wants to invest $1 billion into Haynes Industries. It just so happens to fill in the lack of funds for our resort project. This grand investment really broadens my horizons. Maybe he's taken a fancy to your potential, Jasmine guessed. You're an outstanding and capable woman. And not only that, but you're also the successor to 2 wealthy families. How could he not have heard about that? Do a good job with the resort project. Don't let him down. If you do well, maybe he might want to invest another $1 billion. Do you really think he has that much money to throw away at random companies? Kim asked. She and Jasmine burst into laughter. Seeing that Stephen was laughing as well, Jasmine put on a serious expression. You heard it firsthand. Your wife is becoming more amazing with each passing day. She's a rich woman with $1 billion. If you can't keep up with her, you're going to be abandoned. Stephen shrugged. In any case, he was the one who'd invested $1 billion into Haynes Industries. Kim felt a little disappointed at Stephen's indifferent expression. Would he ever learn how to defend himself or find a goal in life? While the 3 of them were having dinner, a nefarious scheme was being carried out at a certain private hospital. A private hospital had ordered the Wyvern Group's new medical device, and after implementing it into their patient care, an accident occurred which resulted in the death of a patient. After investigating, the hospital found the cause to be the medical device that they had recently purchased. Once this got out, the Wyvern Group was once again at the forefront of public opinion. After all, negative news spread fairly quickly. Even those who didn't know the whole story were cursing the company for making a faulty device. The private hospital canceled the rest of its orders, and all of the other major hospitals and medical institutions in Santa Ana did the same. The Wyvern Group had become the target of public criticism. When Stephen received news of this issue, he dropped everything and headed to the police station. One of the police officers there knew his identity. The police officer looked troubled in regard to Stephen's request. "Mr. Adams, it's not that I don't want to investigate, but because of the large scale of the problem at hand, an experienced investigation team based in Washington, D.C. will be taking over. They'll be arriving soon." "I understand. I'll take this up with them." "That would be difficult. This issue is complicated, not because of the case itself, but because of the person who's handling it." "Who's in charge?" Stephen asked in confusion. At the Grazing Corporation, Austin was relaxing in his office. He was in a good mood. "The Wyvern Group is like a grasshopper after autumn. It won't last long. Mr. Quinn, you didn't leave behind any evidence, right?" "Don't worry. I carried out the plan cleanly and smoothly. All of the evidence points towards the Wyvern Group. Stephen won't be able to do anything once the investigation begins."
Hi, I'm Steven.
Want to know my secrets?
Then download the Pocket FM app and listen to the exciting episodes of Secret Succession now.